Hello friends, thanks for joining me today. So I decided I've seen a bunch of these videos going around in my feed, so I wanted to go ahead and give it a try and do the mid-year freakout tag, which is just answering a bunch of questions about all of the books that I have read up to this point. At this point, I'm a little over halfway through the year. June has just finished, it's July now, but I have the questions here and the books that I want to answer the prompts with, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So question number one, what is the best book of the year that you've read so far? And also I do want to try to, just so this will be interesting, I wanted to try and make each question have a different book. There might be a couple questions that I would apply to the same book, but I went ahead and tried to make each question have a different book just to keep it interesting, with the exception of this first question, which was, again, best book of the year so far. And for me, I have to go with Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. There are a few books that could have made this list, but I just had to go with the one that just gave me the most warm, fuzzy feelings. So this is about an orc named Viv who decides to give up her life of adventuring to open up her own coffee shop. And it is very slice of life, really cozy and cute and just relaxing and just low octane, and it is just so sweet, so cute and cozy. I absolutely loved it, and it's being printed by Tor. I have the book from the original indie print run, and it's been picked up by Tor. I highly recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. Of course, again, it is very low-key, so if you're wanting something more action-packed, this is not it. But it's just so great, one of my favorite books of the year, and I absolutely love it. Question number two is best sequel of the year so far, and I would say that would be Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second book in the Illuminae Files trilogy, which is a sci-fi series where this company basically attacks this illegal mining colony, and people are trying to escape from this giant corporation that is trying to basically eliminate all evidence that they did this attack on this colony, and you're following a bunch of people who are on these spaceships running away from this invading force and trying to survive in space. In book one, there is an AI issue that goes wrong that threatens the people on the ship, and each of the three books you're following a different set of characters, but they're all kind of linked, and in the third book everything kind of comes together. But I really enjoyed, so I gave Illuminae, the first book, 5 stars. I enjoyed it, and Gemina I gave 5 stars, and it fixed the one thing about book one that I wasn't a huge fan of, and that was actually the main characters. The main character kind of couple in book one, I didn't really like them that much. Didn't really like their dynamic or them as characters. I didn't really care that much. But book two, I loved the two main characters. I loved their dynamic. I loved both of them separately. And it had everything that I loved from book one, and then more. The main characters I actually liked. So I really loved Gemina, and you know, it's not a new book, and a lot of these, so I have a lot of books that aren't super new, but obviously to me it was new, and yeah, so Gemina, book 2 of the Illuminae Files is my favorite sequel so far that I've read this year. Question number 3, a new release that you want to read but haven't yet. For me, that would be Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This came out, I believe, in March, and I don't know much about it except the main character, I think her family dies, or her mom dies or something, and she gets like a note saying, "Come to Gallant," which is like maybe a family estate, something like that. And I don't remember if it's supposed to be horror, but it's supposed to kind of be some maybe supernatural, spooky stuff. The main character goes to the estate of Gallant, and the staff there like warn her to stay away from a certain part of the house, and there's just kind of something weird going on. So I love V.E. Schwab. I've started to kind of collect her books. I have a few of them here, and I haven't read all of them yet, but she's one of my favorite authors, so I want to start going through her backlog. But Gallant came out just this year, and it just looks really the physical book looks cool. It's like square shaped rather than rectangular. So yeah, I'm really interested in reading that one. Question number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So my thing with BookTube and reading books is that I don't actually keep a lot of tabs on the stuff that are coming out. I'll get my news from booktubers who of course will talk about upcoming releases, but there are so many books out there that I haven't read yet that have been out for years, so I don't actively seek out the newest books. I intercept them through people's videos, but I'm not super keyed in on a lot of the newest stuff that's coming out. So really the only book I could find on my TBR that's coming out in the second half of this year is Babel by R.F. Kuang, and it has a whole long title, Babel or the blah blah blah. It's a really long title, but I'm just gonna call it Babel. So I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I read book 2, really didn't like it, was very unimpressed. I think I gave it 2 stars, and I actually never read the 3rd book. My fiance actually bought the 3rd book and started to read it, and he was just like, it's so bad, I'm DNFing it, don't read it, don't bother reading it. So I just decided, because book 2 was just really, in my opinion, I just didn't really like it. It was very lackluster. I just decided to DNF the series and not read it, the 3rd book. But I really enjoyed book 1, and I can't remember exactly what Babel is about. It's something about translating some ancient work or something. To be honest, I actually can't remember what Babel is about. But that's the only book on my list that I can say that's coming out in the second half of the year that I am looking forward to. Question 5 is the biggest disappointment of this year. And that would be book 2 in the Girls with Sharp Sticks series, which is Girls with Razor Hearts by Suzanne Young. Book 1 was 5 stars, one of my favorite books I read this year. It was just creepy, and it was insidious and addressed like topics of misogyny, the patriarchy, feminism, and the bond between women, and it was just so good. And book 2, it lost all of the subtlety of book 1, and it hits you over the head with morality stuff that was just it hurt the discussion. It was just not good. The dialogue was bad. It was just, book 2 I gave 2 out of 5 stars. Really disappointing. By far the most disappointing book I've read this year. And then number 6, the biggest surprise this year, and that would be I listened to the audiobook for The House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward, and I had heard a little bit about this from some other booktuber. I can't even remember who exactly, and it was like on sale at Audible, and I decided to download it and give it a listen, and it was disturbing. The narration was done really well. Highly recommend the audiobook. It was creepy, it was disturbing, it was just wow. Like, so I don't have a lot of books where I'll finish reading it and then want to read it again. Like, I don't know, I'm interested in the next thing to read, but I finished it and I immediately wanted to read it again, because knowing what I knew at the end, it just totally changes everything up to that point, and I wanted to read it again with that in mind. I didn't, but it was a really big surprise. I went into it with kind of no expectations. I wanted something kind of creepy. I wanted to read something horror-esque, and it was incredible. 5 out of 5 stars, one of the best books I've read this year. Number 7 is a new favorite author. So this is a little tricky. I tend to read more wide than deep. Aside from V.E. Schwab, like, I'll just read, books from a bunch of different authors. I don't necessarily go out and seek one author in particular. But I would say, I guess for this question, and she's not a new author, but Maggie Stiefvater. I read The Raven Cycle, finished The Raven Cycle this year, and I loved it. It was so good, and just the writing was, the way she captures humanity and the feelings that people have without just describing it flat out. Like, it's just beautiful. I really enjoy her writing. So I have the Scorpio Races, which is a standalone by her. I bought the first book in the, I don't remember what the series is called, but the first book is called Shiver, and it's older. It's been out for a while, but I bought the first book there. I bought Call Down the Hawk, which is the first in I think it's like kind of a companion series to the Raven Cycle. You want to read the Raven Cycle first, I think, because it follows one of the main characters from that series. So I have a few of her books that I want to read. I want to see if she is truly a new favorite author. She has a lot of books out, and I just really enjoyed the Raven Cycle, so I want to give more of her books a try. So I guess I'm saying Maggie Stiefvater, even though I don't necessarily know if she's a new favorite yet, but yeah. Then question 8 is newest fictional crush. So I don't really get crushes on fictional characters in books. If I had to pick someone, I would say it is Silas from The Sorcery of Thorns that I listened to the audiobook for. Like, again, crush isn't quite the right word. It's more like I'm like in awe of him, and he's so cool and powerful. So Sorcery of Thorns is about this girl who lives in this magical land where grimoires are books of magic that come alive, and they hold a bunch of powerful spells that sorcerers use, and the main character Elizabeth is implicated in this crime and has to work with this sorcerer, and she kind of, you know, detests sorcerers because she grew up believing that they're evil, and she has to work with him to basically solve this mystery and this ancient kind of magical conspiracy. And Silas is so she works with Nathaniel Thorne is the sorcerer's name, and he has a companion named Silas, and he's just very soft-spoken, very powerful, very proper, and he's really cool. So I guess if anything, a fictional crush, you know, I'd probably say Silas. And then question 9, which is kind of similar, newest favorite character, but for sure that was an easy one, and that would be Manon Blackbeak from the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So I think she is first introduced in book 3, and she is an Iron Teeth witch. And like, when I compare her to the main character in the series, they're both badasses, but Manon, like, she doesn't have that, I mean, she has a snarkiness to her, but she doesn't have that cocky, like, kind of obnoxious, you know, young adult, I don't know, vibe. Like, she's just a true badass. Manon is kick-ass. She's a badass. She can destroy you. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe my fictional crush should be on Manon because she's just so cool, and she's beautiful, and I love her so much. I don't want to talk too much because that will spoil stuff from the series, but Manon Blackbeak is definitely my new favorite character. Not of all time necessarily, but new favorite character that I discovered this year. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. So I am not a very emotional reader. I don't cry reading books, honestly, so I actually can't answer this question truly honestly because no book has made me cry. But the closest I've gotten has been reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. The end of that, the story is just so tragic. You're following this woman named Addie LaRue who makes this Faustian bargain with some sort of demon god creature in order to be free. She lives forever, she can live forever, but no one who meets her can remember her. So once she walks out of the room, they immediately forget she exists. And she can't leave her mark on the world, she can't write notes, she can't take pictures of herself or record herself. It's as if she's just this ghost. And one day she goes into this small bookshop, and there's the guy who works there remembers her. So the ending was just like, it was just, yeah, it was sad and just gut-wrenching, and it was just, I could feel that place that, you know, starts to kind of throb a bit when you're getting ready to cry. You know, my eyes were dry, but it was, I could feel it. I could feel it, it hurt. And it was just, the book is very beautiful. I gave it 5 stars, highly recommend. But that's the closest I've been to crying, is reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And we're getting towards the end. So number 11 is a book that made you happy. And this is the one time I'm gonna break that rule I said earlier, legends and lattes. There's just no other book that stands out so strongly as that makes me happy. Like, I was just reading this book and it's just chill, it's relaxed. You're just reading about, oh great, they learned to make cinnamon rolls. Awesome. Like, it's just the most mundane slice of life in a fantasy setting, and it's just so, it's so great. Again, highly recommend you check it out if the premise, you know, piques your interest at all. It just made me very happy, and yeah, just easy answer to that question. Question number 12, most beautiful book you got this year. And actually, I wish I had like a physical book for this one, but it's actually an audiobook, so maybe it's kind of, no, it still counts. I'm saying it counts. So that would be for The Cat Who Saved Books. And this is a translated work from Japanese. And unfortunately, I gave the book 2 out of 5 stars, but the cover, the art is incredible. I actually went out and I found the artist and I tried to find a print of this because I was seriously considering getting a print of it, because cats are like, I mean, I am a cat person through and through. You know, one of my favorites, it's my favorite pet would be a cat. And books, I love books, and the cover is just, it's perfect, and I love the Japanese art style. I think the cover is just gorgeous, stunning. So yeah, I don't actually physically own it, but I think that the art of The Cat Who Saved Books is absolutely stunning, my favorite. And finally, question 13, last question, books you have to read before the end of the year. So I've mentioned this before that I am a mood reader in general. I generally don't make TBRs unless it's for like a themed month that's very easy to pick books for, which immediately come to mind, like February, reading romance books, or reading horror thrillers during October, or if there's a readathon, I guess making a TBR for that. But there are, I found a few books that for one reason or another I do want to finish before the end of the year, and one of those is Lake's Edge. I have the Owl Crate edition, and it was from last year, so I got it, I think it was like the book for October of last year, and I'm finally starting to go through all of my Owl Crate backlog, but because that's supposed to be like, I think, supernatural, maybe like romance, spookiness in a house, I wanted to save that for October, so I plan to read Lake's Edge during October. I have book 2 of This Poison Heart by Kaylin Barron, and book 2 just recently came out. It's called This Wicked Fate. This Poison Heart is one of, I can't remember at this point if it's the only one or one of just a couple Owl Crate books that I've given 5 stars. Most Owl Crate books I've read have been like 3 stars, a couple 4 stars. I really enjoyed This Poison Heart. It was great, loved the characters, the relationships between the main character and her family, and her power to manipulate plants, and the way that they like reach towards her and she's like, oh, stop it. She's trying to kind of get control of her powers. And yeah, so I have book 2, and I want to read it soon. I don't want to put off the sequel until I can't remember anything from the first book. So I want to read that very soon. And then the last book that I really want to read before the end of the year is Kingdom of Ash, which is the, I think, 8th and final book in the Throne of Glass series, and that's here. A couple books are missing. One of them I just filmed during a wrap-up for last month, and then Tower of Dawn I am currently reading right now, so I definitely will get to Kingdom of Ash, but it's chunky. It's very chunky, very thick, but yeah, the conclusion of the Throne of Glass series, it's been a really interesting and fun ride. There have been some ups and downs for sure, but I have, you know, a couple new, you know, new favorite character, as I mentioned before, and I'm just glad that I'm finally you know, I can finally weigh in on this very famous and well-known YA fantasy series. So yeah, Kingdom of Ash is the third book that I for sure want to get to before the end of the year. So that is it for the mid-year freakout tag. I hope you learned about a couple new books that might have maybe piqued your interest, or maybe even steered you away from maybe a couple of them, perhaps. But yeah, this was really fun, and I know a lot of these books actually I read very recently. There are several of them that I read in the last month. Last month, June, was a very good reading month. But yeah, this was very fun, and I'm looking forward to, you know, finishing the year strong. I've been reading a lot of books this year, and it's been great. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!